Hello, today we are solving Jan 2021 Unit 2 IAL Edexcel paper question number 2. So, Maria owns a small pottery business in a seaside town where she makes and sells handmade pottery products for cash. At present, she only works 25 hours a week producing pottery products. She also serves customers in the shop. Okay, so this factor is very important. She only works for 25 hours a week. Okay, and she also serves customers in the shop. The following information is available for the pottery items produced and sold. The table shows information for one item of each product. So here it is given for the clay material used, labor time required, then what is the selling price and what is the weekly demand. She is selling for four type of products: pot, vase, mug and plates. Now Maria buys the clay material in 250 kg sacks that cost 250 pounds for each sack. So then there are 1000 grams in a kilogram, and Maria pays herself 12 pounds per hour. Now calculate part A of the question asks calculate the number of labor hours which is required to meet all the demand for all the four pottery products for 1 week. Okay, what is the number of labor hours required? Okay, so now let's calculate the total number of hours required to meet the demand for all the four pottery products for 1 week. Okay, so here it says that so to make 20 weekly demand is so weekly demand is equal to 20 units. Okay, and the labor time required is equal to 15 minutes. Labor per unit is equal to 15 minutes. So to meet that weekly demand, the labor hour worked is labor hour worked. So to meet the labor hours worked, so labor hour worked required for pot is equal to, okay, we have to calculate that. So she takes 15 minutes to make 1 unit. Okay, 1 unit. To make 1 unit she takes about 15 minutes. Okay, so to make 20 units, which is a weekly demand, okay, here it is given 15 minutes per pot. Okay, that is what here labor time required says, that to make 1 unit she takes 15 minutes. So the weekly demand is 20 pots. So 20 pots, okay, 20 pots. To make 20 pots, to make one pot she takes 15 minutes. Okay, to make 20 pots she will have to take 20 into 15 minutes, that is equal to 300 minutes she takes. Now let's convert it into hour. Okay, 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. Okay, so 300 minutes is equal to 300 divided by 60, that is equal to 5 hours. So she takes to make 20 pots. Okay, to make 20 pots, labor time, labor required, labor hour required is equal to 5 hours. She requires 5 hours for the pot. Okay, this is the first one. This is for the pot. Now let's calculate for the vase. Okay, for the vase. For the vase, it says that to make one vase, she takes 10 minutes. To make one vase she takes, okay, to make one vase she is taking 10 minutes. And then you have, for to make 18 vases, to make 18 vases, she will require 18 into 10, that is equal to 180 minutes. Okay, 180 minutes I can convert it into hours by dividing by 60. 180 divided by 60 hours. So that is going to be equal to 180 divided by 60, that is equal to 3 hours. One is the mug. So to make one mug, she takes about how many minutes? She takes 20 minutes. She may takes 20 minutes. So and the weekly demand is 42 mugs. So to make 42 mugs, she will require 42 into 20 minutes, that is equal to 42 into 20, that is equal to 840 minutes. She will require 840 minutes. That's converted into hours. So that is equal to 840 divided by 60 hour. That is going to be equal to 14 hours she requires. So that is the labor hour. Okay, labor hour required. So to make the mug, that is equal to 14 hours. Okay, what is the labor hour required for the plate? Okay, labor hour required for the plate. So for the plate, to make one plate, she requires 30 minutes. 30 minutes. To make weekly demand of 12 plates, she would require 12 into 30 minutes, that is equal to 12 into 30, that is equal to 360 minutes. 360 minutes, that is equal to 360 divided by 60 hours, that is going to be equal to 6 hours. 6 hours. So now the total labor hour required. So now we have the vase. Okay, we have the vase, we have the mug, we have the plate. Total labor hour to meet the weekly demand is equal to 5 hours. 5 hours plus 3 hours plus 14 hours plus 6 hours. That is going to be equal to 28 hours. So it will require 28 hours of labor to meet the weekly demand. Okay. Next one is explain the term limiting factor. Okay, explain the term limiting factor. What is meant by limiting factor? So limiting factors are the factor, or they are talking about the factors of production. Okay, limiting that restricts the quantity of production. It's going to restrict the quantity of production. For example, here she says that she works only for 25 hours, okay, producing pottery products. So here the labor hours worked is the limiting factor. Okay, the limiting factor, which is equal to 25 hours only she can work. That is our limiting factor. But actually, if you see, it requires 28 hours to meet the quantity of demand, okay, which is demanded by the consumers. But she is able to work only for 25 hours. So her quantity of production is going to get restricted. So that is called as limiting factor in the factors of production, that is the factors that which are responsible for production, which is going to restrict the output, okay, output or the quantity of production. Okay, next part C of the question, calculate the contribution for one item of each of the four pottery products. Now what is contribution per unit? Okay, so contribution per unit is going to be equal to selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Okay, so that is the contribution per unit. This is how you will calculate. Now what are the variable cost? Here we can see that the material cost, okay, the material cost is going to vary because different quantities of material are going to be used. So the cost of material is a variable cost per unit is changing, and the labor rate paid, okay, the labor cost is going to change. So because they work for different hours and they are going to be paid differently, so those are the variable costs, okay, we have to calculate. Now let's set up here as a table. Here the first one is going to be the selling price per unit. For the pot it was 7 pounds. It is given she is selling at the rate of 1 pot is equal to 7 pounds. Then weigh she is selling at 6 pounds per unit. So one vase costs 6 pounds. Then one mug costs 6.80. Okay, one mug costs 6.80 pounds. Then one plate costs 10 pounds. So this is her selling price per unit. Now what are the variable cost per unit? Okay, we'll calculate variable cost per unit. So it consists of two portions. One is the material cost, okay, material cost per unit, and then you have the labor cost per unit. So let's see here the material cost per unit. 700 grams is the amount of material required, and she buys the clay material as 250 kg sack that costs 250 pounds for each sack. What is the amount we have to find? So for 1 kg of sack, it is equal to 250 pounds divided by 250 kg. So that is equal to 1 pound per kg. Okay, so that is costing as 1 pound per kg. Okay, so if 250 kg costs 250 pounds, 1 kg of sack will cost 1 pound per kg. Okay, that is the thing. But here I require 700 grams. Okay, so 7 for pot. So 700 grams of clay for the pot will cost 700. Okay, 700. So 700 grams, okay, is nothing but 700 divided by 1000 kg. We have to convert it into 1000 kgs. So 700 divided by 1000. 700 divided by 1000, that is equal to 0.7 kgs. So 0.7 kgs of clay will cost 0.7 pounds. Because this is in kg, we have to convert the grams, okay, into the kg, and then for 7.7 kg of the clay material for the pot will cost 0.7 pounds. Okay, you just multiply directly here. So 1 kg, okay, 1 kg is going to cost 1 pound. Okay, 1 kg is equal to 1 pound. Okay, 1 kg is equal to 1 pound is the cost we have derived. So 700 grams, that is 0.7 kgs, will cost 0.7 pounds. So now similarly we have to calculate for weighs. For weighs, 500 grams is the quantity of material. So 500 divided by 1000. Okay, so 500 divided by 1000, that is equal to 0.5 kg. Okay, that is going to cost 0.5 pounds. So then we have the 300 grams of mug. Okay, 300 grams of mug, so which is a amount of clay required. So this is going for the pot, this is for the vase, and the next one is for the mug. So the mug requires 300, the mug is going to require 300 grams of clay, and that is going to cost, okay, 300 divided by 1000, that is equal to 0.3 kgs. Okay, 0.3 kgs of clay is required for the mug, and the cost of it is going to be equal to 0.3 pounds. Okay, similarly now for the next one, the last one is the plate. So the plate is going to require 600 grams. So 600 grams of clay. Okay, that is nothing but 600 divided by 1000, that is 0.6 kg of clay for the plate. That is going to cost 0.6 pounds. So that's how you will calculate the material cost for each of them. So let's write the material cost. So that is going to be equal to 0.7. So everything is in pounds, so I'm going to write here only, I'm going to express in pounds. So 0.7 pounds for the pot. For the vase it is going to be 0.5, and then we have the mug, which is going to cost, material cost is 0.3 pounds, and for the plate it is 0.6 pounds. 0.6 pounds. So this is the material cost. Okay, next one is the labor cost. Okay, what is the labor cost they are paying? Here it says Maria pays herself 12 pounds per hour. One pot she spends 15 minutes. So to make one pot, labor hour is equal to 15 divided by 60 hours. Okay, she spends. And so the labor cost for one pot, so labor cost for one pot she pays herself is equal to the hours worked into rate paid. So that is equal to, she works for 15 by 60 hours, okay, into the rate she is paying is 12 pounds per hour. So that is going to be equal to 15 divided by 60 into 12, that is equal to 3 pounds. So she is going to get 3 pounds per hour. Now for the same thing, now we have to calculate. So for making one vase, okay, for making one vase she spent, okay, she spends about, for one vase she spends about 10 minutes, that is equal to 10 by 60 hours. Okay, she spends to make one vase. Labor hours, the labor hours spent, okay, the labor hours spent is equal to 10 by 60 hours. So now the labor cost, okay, for making one vase is we have to calculate. So the labor cost for making one vase, okay, one ways is going to be hours worked into rate paid. So the hours worked is equal to 10 by 60 hours into rate paid is 12 pounds. So that is going to be equal to 10 by 60, 10 divided by 60 into 12. So that is going to be 2 pounds per hour. So that is 2. So she is getting paid as 2 pounds per hour. Then we have to calculate for the mug. Okay, for the mug. So what is that to make one mug for one make to make so one mug labor hours spent was 20 minutes. That is 20 by 60 hours she spends. 20 by 60 hours they are spending. Now what is the labor cost? Okay, labor cost for making the mug. So the labor cost for making the mug is going to be equal to, so mug is going to be equal to hours worked. Okay, that is 20 by 60 hours she worked into the rate paid is 12 pounds. So that is going to be equal to 20 divided by 60 into 12. So that is equal to 4 pounds per hour. So she is getting paid as 4 pounds per hour for the mug. Now we have to calculate the labor cost for making the plate. For making one plate she takes 30 minutes. So for making one plate, okay, one plate, the labor hours spent, the labor hours worked is equal to, for making 30 by 60 hours. So 30 divided by 60 hours. So now the labor cost for the plate we have to calculate. So let's calculate the labor cost for one plate. So that is equal to, she works for 30 by 60 hours and she is getting paid at the rate of 12 pounds per hour. Getting paid as 12 pounds per hour. So that is going to be equal to 30 divided by 60 into 12. So that is equal to 6 pounds per hour. So 6 pounds per hour. Now let's fill up here what is the labor cost, okay, that is being paid. So she is getting paid as 3 pounds, okay, 3 pounds for making one pot and 2 pounds for making one vase, and then she is able to get mug 4 pounds. So mug is 4 pounds, and then you have the last one is a plate. She takes about 6 pounds. Now let's calculate the contribution cost per unit. Contribution cost for 1 unit. So that is going to be equal to, now the total, okay, the total. So the 7 minus 0.7 minus 3, so that is going to be equal to 3.3. So that is going to be equal to 3.30. So 3.3. Then we have for the waste, which is going to be equal to 6 minus 0.5 minus 2. So that is equal to 3.5. Then for the mug, it is 6.8 minus 0.3 minus 4. So that is equal to 2.5. that is equal to 2.5, and for the plate it is, now for the plate we have to calculate, so 10 minus 0.6 minus 6, so that is equal to 3.4. So now this is the contribution cost per unit. So the contribution cost per unit is going to be equal to 3.3 for the pot, 3.5 for the vase, 2.5 for the mug, and plate is 3.40. Now next one is calculate the order of production of the 4 pottery products required to maximize the profit for each week. Now what is the order of production? So the order of production will be 1. Okay. What is the order of production? The order of production is determined by contribution per labor. Okay, contribution, because the labor is the constraint of production. Whichever is the constraint for production, that you will find the for calculating the order of priority. Okay, so what is the order of priority? So the order of priority is determined by calculating the contribution. The order of production, okay, is determined. The order of production is determined by the contribution per labor, because it is the constraint. So by the labor hours worked, okay, by the labor hour. Contribution per unit, okay, contribution per unit, okay, contribution cost per unit. So what was the contribution cost per unit? We had already calculated in the earlier portion. The contribution cost per unit, okay, was equal to 3.3, 3.5, 2.5 and 3.4. So let's write that. So now we wrote the contribution, okay, cost per unit. It is 3.3, vase is 3.5, mug is 2.5 and plate is 3.4. Time taken per unit in hours we have to calculate. So 15 by 60, okay, 15 divided by 60 hours. Then 10 divided by the time taken is 10 divided by 60 hours. Then 20 minutes, that is nothing but 20 by 60 and 30 by 60. So now let's calculate the time taken in, okay, the time required for making one pot is 15 by 60 hours. The time required for making one vase is 10 by 60 hours. For the mug it is 20 by 60 hours, and for the plate it is 30 by 60 hours. Now we have to calculate what is the contribution per labor hour. We have to calculate, because that is a constraint, and based on that we have to order. So contribution per labor hour is going to be equal to 3.3 divided by 15 by 60. So that is going to be equal to, so you will do it as divided by 50 into 60. So that is going to be equal to 13.2. So 13.2. Now for this one, for the vase, it is going to be 3.5 divided by, okay, 3.5 divided by 10 into 60. So that is equal to 21. So that is equal to 21. Then we have 2.5 divided by 20 okay, into 60, so that is equal to 7.5. Then then we have 3.4 divided by 30, okay, into 60, so that is equal to 6.8. Now let's determine the order of production. So in what order, okay, order of production to be undertaken so that you have the profit, okay, that is because the constraint is labor hour, you will divide it by the labor hour and you have found the one with the highest contribution. So the one with the highest contribution will have the priority. Highest contribution has priority, okay, whichever is bringing more money, that is the highest contributor, that will be given the priority. Here we can see the waste is getting the highest, okay, contribution, so the order of priority of making will be 1, okay, the waste, and then second will be the pot because it is at 13.2, and then we have the mug, which is the third we have to produce, and the last one is a plate which is bringing in only 6.8. So this we have to produce it at the last. So this is how you will determine contribution, okay, contribution per labor hour. So that is the contribution which you have got per labor hour, okay. So this is going to be in pounds. So now the contribution cost per labor hour is equal to pounds, okay, pounds per hour. Okay, we have calculated that. Now the order of production which has the highest contribution will have the highest priority. So that's how the order of production is determined. Then part E of the question asks, okay, calculate the quantities, okay, calculate the quantity of production of each pottery product that would maximize the product, maximize profit each week. One is a waste. So we will have to include waste has to be made first. The second product we are going to make is the pot, okay, because it has the highest, second highest contribution. So the pot is placed as the next, okay, and the next one is the mug. Mug is the third production, order of production, okay. So how we are writing here is in the order of production, okay, this is based on the order of production which was determined in the previous portion. So what was the order of production? So the vase was the first one, okay, then we had the pot to be made, and then the third one is the mug, okay, and the fourth one is the plate. Now what is the constraint? Okay, the constraint is, or the limiting factor of production, limiting factor of production, limiting factor of production is equal to 25 hours work, okay, 25 hours, or she can work only for 25 hours, that is the limiting factor of production. So based on that we will have to reduce the quantity of output reduced, okay, the quantity of production gets reduced, or we will have to reduce the output, it will constrain the quantity of output, constrains quantity of production. So now let's find out. So first one is, what is the quantity of production? So So the priority is first, and we have the hours here. Okay, max hours. The first one is the quantity of production. Okay, the quantity of production for the waste. So for the waste, we are the amount of time required, the max amount of time required for the waste we had calculated in the first portion. Okay, the waste required 3 hours. So the waste, okay, to produce a total quantity of 18, it required 3 hours. So the 3 hours, so let's write it here. So it takes 3 hours, which is within the 25 hours. So I will be able to complete all the 18 vases of production. Okay, 18 vase I will be able to make. Next one, the hours consumed, the labor hours consumed, okay, is 5 hours for the pottery. So let's write it here. So 5 hours, okay, for the pottery. So it takes 5 hours for the pottery, and it is again, okay, so the total labor hour at this point she has consumed is 8 hours. Okay, 8 hours. So, and she is able to make 20 pots. Okay, 20 pots. Now the next one requires to meet the weekly demand. Okay, she has to work for 14 hours. So she has to work for 14 hours. So let's write it here, 14 hours. We have to constantly check with it if it is within 25 hours. So 18 plus 14, that is equal to 22 hours. It takes, the total is 22 hours. Still she will be able to work, and the mug amount produced is 42. So that will be completed. The production of 42 mugs will be completed. Then we have just 3 more hours left, 22 minus 25, because the plate requires, okay, to make 12 quantity of plate. To make the 12 quantity of plate, it requires 6 hours. Okay, 6 hours is not possible. So 6 hours is not possible. Only 6 minus 3 hours, okay, is possible. That is equal to 3 hours is only possible. Okay, 3 hours. So the remaining 3 hours, in the 3 hours she will have to, because it is only, it requires 6 hours to make the plate. Okay, for the plate I will write it here. So to meet weekly demand for plate quantity of, she has to produce 12. Okay, she has to produce of 12 units. Okay, labor hour required, labor hour required was equal to, we had calculated in the first, okay, in the first portion, the labor hour required to make, okay, 12 plates, it was 6 hours. Okay, it requires 6 hours. 6 hours. But the Maria will be only able to work, okay, for another, but Maria will work for 25 minus 22, that is equal to 3 hours only. So in 3 hours, she will be able to produce, okay, so it takes 6, so 12 units are produced in 6 hours. So in 3 hours she will be able to produce only 6 units of plate. She will only produce 6 units of plate. She will not make the entire 12 plate. She'll be, so she has left with only 3 hours. Okay, 3 hours. because the constraint is it has to be less than the max hours. Okay, constraint is it has to be within less than or equal to 25 hours. That is a constraint. So we are left with 25. So 6 hours minus 3 hours, that is equal to 3 hours only will be left. Okay, and with that she will be able to produce only 6 units of plate. So this is the quantity of production that is possible because of the constraint she has. So this is how you will show the quantities of production of each product. Okay, that helps you to maximize the profit each week because there is a constraint of labor hours. The next one is calculate the profit per week for Maria's business. What is the profit she will get? Okay, so to calculate the profit per week, okay, we will calculate the total contribution cost minus fixed cost. So that will get you your that will give you the profit, okay, per week in this case. So now here, what is the product we have to write, and what is the total contribution we are getting, total contribution cost we have to calculate. So total contribution cost, okay, we will have to calculate. Now what are the products? First product we are making is the vase. In the order of production, the first one is the vase, then we have the pot, the third product we are making is the mug, and then the fourth product is the plate. So we have the vase, okay, the contribution cost, okay, per unit, and the quantity produced will give the total contribution. So quantity produced, and then we have the contribution cost per unit, so now the total contribution we will have. So total contribution. So let's calculate that. First one is the quantity of vase that is going to be produced. We saw that the vase can be produced as the total contribution cost, the total quantity that can be produced is 18 units. So let's write 18 units. The contribution per unit we had calculated. Contribution per unit we had calculated. So that is going to be equal to 3.3. For the vase it is 3.5. Okay. So for the vase, the contribution per unit is going to be 3.5. Then next one is we have to make the pot, that is 20. The contribution cost per unit we had calculated in the earlier, that was 3.3. So let's write it here, 3.3. 3.3. And for the mug we are able to produce 42 units. The contribution cost per unit, okay, the contribution cost per unit for the mug was 2.5. For the mug it was 2.5. And for the plate, because of the constraint, we are able to make only 6 plates and not the 12 plates. So we'll write the 6 plates, and the contribution cost per unit, okay, contribution cost per unit for the plate was 3.4, which we had calculated in the part C. So let's write it here. So 3.4. Now the total contribution, so 18 times 3.5, so that is equal to 63 pounds. So that is equal to 63 pounds. Okay, then 20 into 3.3, that is equal to 66 pounds. Then 42 into 2.5, that is equal to 105 pounds. So that is equal to 105 pounds. Then we have 6 plates into 3.4, that is going to be equal to 20.4. So 20.4. Now we have to calculate the total contribution for all the products. Okay, that's the total contribution. So that is 63 plus 66 plus 105 plus 20.4. So that is equal to 254.4. So 254.4 pounds. 254.4 pounds. Then after that we have to calculate the fixed cost. Here they have given here the fixed cost. Okay, the fixed cost is Maria has the following fixed cost. Rent is 2000 pounds per year. Electricity and water bills are 120 pounds per month. A kiln was bought 2 years ago for 1600, which will last for 5 years before being scrapped for 100 pounds. Assume 50 weeks in a year and 4 weeks in a month. So now we have to identify all the fixed costs which is given here. So fixed costs. So what are the fixed costs? We have the rent. Okay, the rent is fixed for the entire year. So let's write it here. So the rental cost was 2000 pounds. Okay, the rent cost. Here we are calculating the profit per week. Okay, this is for week. So the rent per week we have to calculate. So that is going to be 2000 divided by 12. So divided by 50 weeks. So 2000 divided by 50 weeks. Okay, because per week we have to calculate. So that is going to be equal to 40 pounds per week. So that is 40 pounds. Then we have the electricity and water bills. So electricity and water bills per week we have to calculate. Here we can see that it is 120 per month. Okay, 120 per month divided by, there are 4 weeks, it says, divided by 4 weeks. So that is going to be equal to 30 pounds per week. So that is 30 pounds per week. Then we have the depreciation. This is a kiln. So the depreciation expense is spread. Okay, is used as a fixed cost expense. So depreciation cost per week we have to calculate. So we know that the kiln was bought for 1600 and it is going to last for 5 years before being scraped for 100 pounds. So 1600 minus 100, okay, divided by 5 years. So every year, so that is going to be equal to 1600 minus 100, that is 1500 divided by 5, that is equal to 300 pounds per year. 300 pounds per year. So then we have to convert it into weeks. So that is going to be equal to 300 divided by 300 divided by, there are 50 weeks in a year, so that is equal to, so that is going to be equal to 6 pounds. So divided by 50, so that is going to get us, so that's going to get us 6 pounds per week. So now we have the fixed cost. Okay, now we have all the fixed cost, and now we have to calculate the profit per week. So the profit per week is going to be equal to 254.4 minus 40 minus 30 minus 6, so that is equal to 178.40 pounds. So that is 178.40 pounds. So this is a profit per week for the Maria's business based on the limiting factor of production. Okay, and you are also maximizing the profit. Okay. Then part G of the question says calculate the number of labor hours a sales assistant would be required to work. Maria knows that 25 hours making pottery products is not enough to fully meet the demand. Okay, because she is working less than the total labor hours required. The labor hours required to meet the total weekly demand, we saw that the total labor hours in the first question, we saw that it requires 28 hours, but she is able to work only for 25 hours. Maria is able to work only for 25 hours. So that is a constraint. So she is considering employing a sales assistant in the shop to allow Maria to spend enough time making pottery products so she can fully meet the demand. So at this point, she was not able to meet the fully quantity of production or the weekly demand of 12 plates. She was able to make only 6 plates. So that's why the question she is considering, where she is trying to employ an assistant to complete the extra 6 plates. Okay, so to complete the meet the weekly demand. So and these extra 6 plates, so that we had seen that she works for 3 hours to make 6 plates. So if she works to complete the weekly demand of 12 plates, the weekly demand was around 12 plates to be made. Okay, it requires 12 plates to be made. So the assistant has to work for 3 more hours, because okay, in 3 hours she is able to complete 6 plates. Another 3 hours the assistant works, she will be able to meet the weekly demand. So that's what we have to write. So in 3 hours she will be able to make the 6 more plates required to meet the weekly demand, of 12 plates. Okay, as Maria first, as what, why, because in 3 hours Maria makes 6 plates and assistant will have to work for 3 more hours. Okay, if her assistant works for 3 more hours, she will be able to meet the 6 plates more she will be able to make and meet the weekly demand of 12 plates. So the number of hours the sale assistant required to work is going to be equal to 3 hours. is equal to 3 hours. If she works for 3 hours, it is enough, and they will be able to complete another 6 plates. Now the total wage which Maria could pay her sales assistant and still make the same amount of profit. Okay, what is the wage that is required to pay this sales assistant? We have to calculate. So we know that, okay, what is the profit here? Profit was total contribution. Okay, we had calculated total contribution. Okay, total contribution minus fixed cost will be equal to profit. Okay, now the total contribution here, okay, with the 6 more plates, okay, will become equal to 254.4 plus 254.4 plus the extra cost she is going to get. Okay, the cost due to the 6 plates, or we can write it as contribution due to 6 plates by assistant. Okay, that minus what are the fixed cost. You already had some fixed cost. Okay, fixed cost. Okay, plus the wage cost. Extra is the wage cost, which becomes a fixed cost for the assistant, and that is equal to the profit. This is how the change is going to take place with the extra hours. Okay, the extra 6 plates made by the assistant and the wage cost that's going to be incurred. So now let's calculate that. So the total contribution, okay, was 254.4, and the additional contribution that's going to be what due to the 6 plates. Okay, we already saw that 6 plates is going to bring a contribution of 20.4. So let's write that. So 20.4. okay, if they make 6 plates. So now that is the first portion change. And then when she employs the new assistant, now the fixed cost is going to be remain the same. That is electricity bill, rent per week, and depreciation cost. That is 40 plus 30 plus 6. That is equal to 76. Okay, pounds is going to remain just like that. 76 pounds. Okay, we have to subtract. So 76 pounds plus the wage cost we have to calculate. We don't know the wage cost that has to be paid to the new people, but she wants the same amount of profit, which is 178.40. so let's write that 178.40. so that is going to be equal to, if we rearrange and get the wage cost, is going to be equal to 254.4 plus 20.4 minus 178.4. so the and minus 76 minus 178.4. so that is going to be equal to 254.4 plus 20.4 minus 76 minus 178.4. so that is equal to 20.4. so 20.4 is the wage cost. Okay, wage cost for 3 hours is to be paid. Now here they are asking hourly rate to be paid to the assistant. So for 1 hour, how much she needs to pay? So that is for 3 hours. So that is equal to 20.4 divided by 3. That is going to be equal to 6.8 pounds. So she will need to pay only 6.8 pounds. Okay, this was the wage cost she will incur for 3 hours. And for per hour she will have to pay 6.8 pounds to that laborer. Okay, so that is the hourly rate to be paid. So the total wage that needs to be paid is 20.4. Okay, that the total wage that needs to be paid is going to be equal to 20.4 pounds, and the hourly rate to be paid is 20.4 divided by 3 pounds, divided by 3 hours, because she works for 3 hours. So that is equal to 6.8 pounds per hour the sales assistant has to be paid if she has to make the same amount of profit as previous as